Welcome back to the Makers of MidCity podcast. I'm your host, Clark Dunn.
And I'm Nadia Niankasri, Head of Development for RCP Companies.
And today we have the opportunity to sit down with the social media manager and content creator for the camp and MidCity, Amanda Welch. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Nadia, we want to talk a little bit about how RCP came to find Amanda to fill this role.
Yeah, this is a funny story because I remember years ago, Lindsay and I were doing, my initial role with RCP was the come up of the camp in MidCity. It was back in 2017 when both the camp and MidCity were first being stood up, and we started the channels for Instagram, Facebook for these projects. And eventually it became a little bit too big for what we were doing. And so we were on the hunt for a social media manager, and we had, I cannot tell you how many interviews, and we, hired on a few people, and it just wasn't necessarily a fit because they know social media, but they don't live it. They don't know, they don't do it. And so I remember being like, this girl, she tags us on the camp all the time and posts about other local businesses. And she's, at the camp talking about the food that we have there and the events that we have there. And I was like, let me just message her on Instagram and be like, okay, you're already doing this. Do you want to get paid to do it? And so we brought her in. Yeah. So I remember we brought her in, me and Lindsay had brought Amanda in for an interview, a soft interview. And I remember you thinking you didn't know it was an interview.
No, I thought it was like a collab. I was like, they want to collab with me. It was literally like halfway through. I was like, this is a real interview, I think.
And so you kind of, obviously you were a big supporter of the camp early on, and kind of coming here with your friends and seeing the space and seeing it develop as MidCity was kind of growing behind it.
Yeah.
And then this interaction, social media though wasn't something you were really doing just for fun prior to that. It wasn't like it was already a business. This is something that you just kind of, your first real job with social media is the job you have now.
Yeah. Yep. So I did do a few things. Like I was the first voice of Huntsville for the Scout Guide, and I did some blogging here and there with We Are Huntsville, but I didn't have like a legitimate job yet. So yeah, it was a lot of personal, just playing around on social media, but I loved it. It was so much fun.
Like very first, one of the first early adopters for the camp, not only the camp, but a lot of local businesses around town. I think Huntsville was just now starting to see this, what you call
change.
The like influencer era of social media, right? And all these new businesses were popping up, and Amanda was doing a great job at highlighting all these businesses. So we were like, let's talk to her and see if she would want to be the person behind the camps. It was originally just the camps social media channels, and then she adopted MidCities along the way. Yeah.
The camp was just so intriguing also because I hadn't experienced anything like that within Huntsville yet. So that's why, change. It was like this new era of Huntsville coming. Madison Square Mall was gone, and camp was like this new, pretty awesome thing. Had to go experience it as much as possible.
And a lot of people still hadn't known about it yet, right?
Yeah, right.
So I think that was your main mission as you were posting all this content about all the local businesses, was to get people to know about other restaurants and things to do and different events. And you did a great job at highlighting this quality of life that Huntsville had to offer. Yeah. And at this time where a lot of people were moving to Huntsville, it was great that we had this local ambassador who we then brought onto our team and to do
poached and said, hey, this is ours.
Yeah, she's not
no one else.
Exactly.
And so like early on when you first kind of took this role, obviously it was just the camp first. What was sort of the first steps in which you were kind of getting the voice of the camp out there? Because it was fairly new, and it was this idea that, hey, something's happening at MidCity, that old Madison Square Mall, something's going on, but this confusion of like, what is going on? What is the camp? And I feel like you were probably having to kind of educate the community on what the camp is, but also advertise these events that are going on.
Yeah, it was very different in the beginning when I first started. I just hopped on, and it was very much like a weekend gig. I would go on like Fridays through Saturday evening and highlight like the music, tagging all the people in town.
It's like finding the voice for the camp was a lot about like, I think originally it was this very fun voice. You know, we call our audience campers. And there's a fine balance of what you were just talking about, like that real-time content of like being on site Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like getting the content of like what the vibe of the camp is and like the events that are happening at that time. Yeah. But it's also the events that are about it's promoting the future events as well. So how do you balance the content that you post on the camp and the voice that you use? And then we'll talk about the difference with, you know, the camp and MidCity and how that differs.
I feel like the camp is like, I can be silly and fun and, you know, they have all these cool events and live music. And MidCity is like this ever changing, evolving, huge development with, you know, all these tenants that are here already. So I need to focus on them. But then also like the development that is still happening currently with the construction and things up and coming. So it's a lot of like, I have to be organized, but it's a lot of like different layers to it, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too. And I think you do a great job at it, is not only just promoting this event prior to the event, the day of the event, but you're also in that event capturing content that's happening real time. Cause I think that's one of the, like, you know, the great things about Huntsville is that you're not that far away from anything really. And so when you're capturing these events that maybe people aren't seeing you post about prior, but you're capturing them that day in it, then it's like, oh, I had nothing to do today. I'll come to that event. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of a cool thing because it's, you know, the events at the camp have also evolved. The assortment and the array of different things that the camp does. How is there the voice that you have for the camp? You alluded to it a little bit ago, but the voice you have for the camp versus the voice you have for MidCity, is it hard to take off and like think, okay, this post that we need to talk about needs to be MidCity and this is how I should say it?
Yeah, I think I don't want to say struggled, but I did have a little bit of a difficult time in the beginning because I was so focused on the camp. It was very camp heavy and I could be silly and I could make all these silly reels and everything. And then once I took on MidCity, I realized, okay, this is a little bit more serious.
A little bit more mature, a more mature brand, a little more mature audience.
Is a good word. It's a lot of juggling, but I think that I am learning.
You know, like you talked about, it's a lot of juggling and trying to navigate the different things that are going on at the camp versus the things that are going on at MidCity. And there's some things that you use in your day-to-day operation of creating content and scheduling content that kind of help make that a little bit easier. Talk a little bit about some of those things that maybe are the insider trade of what makes a good social media content creator.
So I do use later.com. It allows me to schedule out all of my content ahead of time. And that really comes in handy for the camp because we do have so much going on that I can, like, we already have March going into April planned. Oh. So I'm getting everything planned out. Whereas I kind of focus on MidCity. I don't post as regularly on MidCity, but I post really important things. So I take it like week by week. And I'm dissecting what's going on, what's happening. Sometimes I do post in real time based on our needs or what's happening, like if there's a groundbreaking or something like that. But yeah, later is really awesome. I use Trello, and that's in coordination with our graphic designer. And it really helps us keep organized, and we can plan, look to the future, put things on hold, things that are done. I really highly recommend Trello and later.com, but there's so many. And also like Meta on Facebook is amazing. There's this cool feature on there where you can actually like test different types of content and it's like A/B testing. So you can like put out the same thing, or not the same thing. The content that you want to put out, you can put out like a reel versus like a stagnant post or something and see which one does better. And then you can kind of like go with that. That's awesome. And then another thing is like AI, ChatGPT is actually a really great tool.
Oh yeah.
I think people were a little intimidated by AI at first, but it's actually I don't think it's meant to replace us. I
No,
think
not at
it's
all.
definitely meant as a tool to make your job easier and better.
So how are you using AI nowadays? How do you use it in your role?
So I will actually ask ChatGPT for like ideas, or like if I'm having difficulty coming up with a caption or a description or something, I'll just like quickly put these few words or whatever into ChatGPT, and it will literally like, put out a whole spiel. It's really amazing and very handy.
Making you way more efficient at your job. That's
Exactly.
great.
And
Getting more done.
It's a cool thing too, because it's, often having that, especially in the role you have, you're kind of, you're the only person. So there's not like a sort of that colleague that you can bounce an idea off of. But ChatGPT kind of allows you to have that person that, hey, I know I want to talk a little bit about this and a little bit about this and a little bit about this, but I don't want to talk about this, but I want to talk like this.
Yeah.
And it's like, boom, there it is. And it's like,
I know.
well, I won't take it necessarily exactly the way they give me and make it that post, but you're able to kind of then, okay, I can tweak this, change it, and adapt it to exactly the voice that the camp has or the voice that MidCity has.
100%. Yeah.
And then so with scheduling on later, you're able to look ahead for the camp and really plan these events. But there is a lot of this stuff that you're doing kind of in real time too for them.
Yeah.
With other sorts of pieces of content. Talk a little bit about some of those contents and some of the things that you're doing more real time for the camp versus things that you are planning out.
Okay. So, for example, as I mentioned earlier, we already have our calendar for March and like April filled out. So I can go ahead and get those into our calendar on the website, into like We Are Huntsville. We collaborate with them and they can help us get it onto other people's calendars. Whereas in real time, I am like usually at a real event. I might go live, for instance, like Crawfish Festival, or for instance, Mardi Gras is this weekend. I am going to be on site getting that real content. I will post on stories. But yeah, going live is also really exciting because it lets people know this is happening right at this very second. And, like you said, if somebody could be like, oh, I have nothing going on right now, I'm going to head down to the camp. They've got something cool going on.
Yeah. And it's a cool thing just to see how the camp has evolved. How has the evolution as the camps continue to grow and kind of find its own voice, and the MidCity as a whole is continuing to grow, has your job kind of advertising both of those become easier as more people are kind of aware of what's going on?
The camp has definitely evolved and it's really branded itself, and people know what the camp is about. If they don't, that's my job. I'm trying to teach them.
When you first took on this role for doing the social media for both MidCity and the camp, MidCity at the time didn't really have any tenants. There was no really apartment complexes here. So the way that which you have to kind of brand content changed, I would assume, as the metronome is where we're sitting right now. As people are filling the spaces, you're talking more about that commuter lifestyle of just, hey, walking and getting the tenants that are already here to kind of adopt what's going on at the camp and at MidCity. Has that?
Yeah.
How have you seen that continue to grow? And as more and more of these apartment complexes are going to be opening this year, how is that going to? Is it going to change the how often you're kind of gearing content towards them?
Yes, I think when I first started on MidCity, I was really focused on the camp. And I learned, okay, there's a lot more going on at MidCity than just the camp. It's growing, as you said. So I started like stepping out of my comfort zone, going and visiting all these tenants. And then as soon as like everything started being built, like Blue Oak and Metronome, it expanded all of that content. And I did need to educate the public that, hey, you can literally park your car, go have, lunch at Blue Oak and go get some shopping at REI and, go have coffee at Starbucks. There's a lot that you can do. And it's just a matter of educating the public. So the content has changed and that requires a lot of collaboration. It's definitely not just me. I get like Tyler, my photographer and videographer, he's out here a lot helping me get content as well. And talking with Lindsay and Nadia
about like the different types of content. So I'm more on the development side, right? And so I know the things that are being built out here. So if I have a great update on, something new that's happening with one of our buildings, like, one of the residential properties topping out, or this, new a new update photo of like one of the interiors that's being built out, like I send that to Amanda. I'm like, hey, this would be great to share the progress on the development side.
Yeah.
And so Amanda's constantly having this fine balance, this dance between the development side of MidCity and having people, educating the public, like she was saying about you don't have to wait for MidCity to be complete. All 140 acres doesn't need to be done.
Yeah.
There's stuff to do here today and to come out, shop at the shops, eat at the restaurants and bars, and, you know, hang out at the parks. So she does a really good job of showing what's here today at MidCity.
Yeah. And as you know, as MidCity is continuing to evolve, it's crazy just to think that we are not even, 30%, 40% of the way done. And there's so much content for you to create just from this that's already created. But then what the next year looks like with more and more things opening and new groundbreakings, you're going to have your work cut out as far as figuring out, what to post, when to post it, what needs to be addressed. What are you kind of excited for as there's a lot of events that are taking place here at MidCity in the next few months? What are some of these events that you're excited about seeing and kind of some of your favorite events that take place here at MidCity in general?
Okay. So I really love Crawfish Festival. That's something that we put on every April. That's coming up soon, and I'm super excited for that. Camp to Amp is something new that started maybe my second year here, and that is really cool because we collaborate with MidCity, the camp, and the Orion. So it was actually started to celebrate the opening of the Orion. And so now it's just like this really cool community event, and that's in May, and I'm super excited for that.
Yeah. And it's incredible just to see how many events that y'all do, and your ability just to get the content out there is incredible. I think there's like you said, your goal is to get people to say, hey, I don't need to wait for MidCity to be done. There's a lot that's happening now. And I think you do an incredible job about getting that out there from the camp's perspective and MidCity's perspective. We'll definitely have everything in the episode notes for more information of the work you do and some of the, and links to the event pages and all of that information. So if you want to find out more, you can visit there, but I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you so
Amanda.
much for having me.